Since there is no central office in Vienna, we here in the country cannot wait any longer. We must give up on the powers that cannot protect us from starvation. In fact, the Commonality, or empire, mattered desperately to ordinary Austrians and Hungarians, never more so than in the fall of 1918. But its increasing absence from daily life situations was precisely the problem. But where exactly is the empire as an actor in our historical memory of the events of 1918 and the subsequent years? Empire is too often the absent actor. It's made irrelevant, so the story goes, by the emerging nation-states of Central and Eastern Europe. So in my lecture today, I want to revisit the familiar stories often told about the end of the war and the collapse of the empire, and the birth of the self-styled nation-states that allegedly followed. And in doing so, I will interrogate the very terms on which historians commonly tell this story. And I want to offer some strategies for understanding the significance of the imperial collapse and its aftermath. Now, as most of you know, or those of you who've seen any of my work know, most of it questions the degree to which, or the ways in which nationalist commitments determined daily life outcomes in general in Imperial Austria. But in rethinking the end of empire, I want to go further than that. It's not enough to simply relativize the importance of popular or organized nationalism to determining the outcomes in Austria-Hungary. In this talk, I ask that we rethink the fundamental character of the relationship of ideas about nationhood to ideas about empire. In doing so, we might understand the significance of the collapse of empire and its replacement by the successor states in a new light. To be more precise, I'm not arguing that nationalism wasn't a critical factor in the years around 1918. Instead, I'm asking that we give more importance to empire as the critical context in which those nationalist practices, ideologies, and structures developed. What happened in the years around 1918 was far more determined by the imperial context than we give it credit. For that very reason, post-Habsburg nationalists legitimated their new states in a language that consistently rejected any and all legacies of empire, even as they quietly went about founding little new empires to replace that of the Habsburgs. In the same way that multiple conferences and publications commemorated the outbreak of the Great War back in 2014, we are likely in the next 2 years to confront a comparable barrage, to use a term of that war, of conference volumes marking both the end of the war and the transformations that it brought about in East Central Europe. And as we approach the centenary of the end of the First World War, teleological views of the war's outcome continue to shape the dominant narratives of the period. Nationalist architects of the states that replaced the monarchy and their allies largely constructed these views that we still buy. Long after scholars have rejected overt nationalist approaches as an appropriate lens for interpreting historical events, we still view the events of the period, I'd say 1918 to 1925, in some measure as defined by popular nationalist triumphs. Even accounting for sensible revisionism over the years, nationalist reasoning continues to frame broader explanations for why the monarchy fell and how it fell, and for what kind of regimes replaced it. Still, if 2018 is anything like 2014, occasionally some works will offer us really interesting novel insights. And they will remind us that a lot of critical historical work actually has been done in the past decades that contradict this common wisdom about nationalism. The recent proliferation of original studies, some by scholars I see sitting in front of me, actually many, on topics such as wartime bureaucracy, wartime military administration, Austro-Hungarian policies of occupation, the treatment and experiences of refugees, wartime propaganda, welfare, or the transformations of the meanings of citizenship, all of this suggests that we already have built strong foundations for for telling alternative stories about the nature of the collapse of the Habsburg Empire.